So my name is Shanjo. I'm the Director of Technical Sales Engineering for the Americas here at Nozomi, and I am your host. And again, I'm joined by Scott Smith, the Senior Product Manager for Vantage. So I'm going to kick a couple things off here. One is, don't worry, we are recording this webinar, so if you ever need to fall back on it, you can go back and listen to it at a future time. Also, you'll notice in your webinar, there are some resources that are available to you as well. So feel free to click on that. Second thing is, you have any questions, feel free to enter those questions as they arise, and we'll do our best to address them as they come in as well. And we also have a couple of polls for you as well. I think it's going to make this a little more interesting and hopefully make this more impactful and meaningful to you. We've got a couple of quick polls, so keep an eye out for that, and I will announce them as we roll them out. And with that, maybe we'll kick things off. Maybe just a quick introduction of yourself, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Shan. So Scott Smith, Senior Product Manager here at Nozomi. I am working on the cloud solution, so that includes Vantage as well as Vantage IQ, as well as some other special projects that we have going on as well. My background comes from the electric utility side, monitoring and managing the substations and control rooms for security, and then moved over to more of the software side, and now here at Nozomi, managing the solution. So I work very closely with our customers, getting feedback, seeing what they're doing day to day, as well as new projects that they have going on, which helps us stay in tune with the market and what customers are needing and requiring. And that's really where Vantage IQ comes into play, and being able to help customers address those needs.
Fantastic. Thank you, Scott. And again, for the folks that are just joining here, happy Wednesday to all of you. And we're going to kick things off. So we're going to kick things off with maybe just a quick poll here. One's right around, for the folks that are on this call and joining this webinar, who has the day-to-day responsibilities for doing analytics and doing data monitoring. I'm going to just launch a quick poll here. And the question is really around, how many security alerts can you typically process? I know in my former life, sometimes having too many tools was a good and a bad. Good that we had that visibility, we had that monitoring capability, but we wound up with too much information and you just get overload. And regardless of how many different technologies we applied, we get all these different sources. And maybe, Scott, maybe you can talk about, a little bit about what we do here at Nozomi in terms of the visibility that we provide and how that potentially contributes to the massive amounts of data that analysts receive on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so as we started Nozomi, we were very keen on the OT side, working on protocol support and OT side. With OT, you have more limited alerts coming in, not as many security alerts coming in, more of operational alerts with starts and stops. As the industry changed, evolved, as Nozomi started to provide further protocol support, integrations, and so forth, we started to monitor IoT devices, and then into IoT devices and medical devices in different fields. With that, it started bringing in more and more alerts. So you have more transient devices coming in, you have bring your own devices for IT departments, and then you have companies wanting to monitor everything in a single platform and be able to send that off and have better correlation. With that, we had a lot of alerts coming in. So one of the items is how to address that, how to be able to give key actions to customers to be able to say, here's a key alert to take action on. So we've reviewed all maybe 15,000, 30,000 alerts in the last couple of days. Here's the key alerts to take action on to address quickly. These are maybe abnormal, or these are critical ones. These are tied to an adversary or a threat actor. Please take action on those. So sometimes spending time with our customers, we see that they have a lot of alerts coming in. They want to get their monitoring out there. They have a project, which is deployment and asset inventory, but they want to do monitoring on top of that. So they quickly deploy out without going through normal tuning and understanding the environment, which is perfectly fine. But then they get a lot of alerts coming in that they're not tuning, or so they may miss some critical stuff. So that's where Vantage IQ comes in to help with that alert fatigue and be able to pinpoint key alerts, key actions to take in your environment. If it's addressing security alerts to help improve your security posture, if it's tuning recommendations, if it's better monitoring in certain aspects, Vantage IQ will help with that. And here, the screen that we have right here, the slide, is talking about the security visibility everywhere. So as I mentioned, we started with OT, doing protocol support, moving to IoT and IT. But with that, companies have a huge attack surface. So they want to be able to monitor those attack surface because one, there's multiple groups deploying out there for different devices. They're connecting them onto the web, and being able to monitor those becomes difficult. And also being able to understand what they have out there and correlations and being able to understand what to do with those assets can be hard, especially with the economy it is today, being able to address all of those actions. So one of Nozomi's visions and plans is really being able to help customers take action and being able to address those key actions with maybe less resources, being able to do more with less. And Vantage IQ is definitely going to help with that.
No, that's great information there, Scott. Well, maybe I'll take a step back, and for some of the folks that may be a little bit new to these concepts, right? Why do you think there's a need to monitor so many devices, especially in OT environments now, right? Because historically and through my 2 decade plus experience, right, OT was never really a big focus, but now it's come into focus and come into greater understanding of the need. One obviously is because of the interconnectivity that some of the recent events contributed to, but that comprehensiveness of visibility. Why do you feel like there's this increased need for that?
The need for that is just the amount of assets coming in with all the different alerts and being able to address it. There's so many items coming in and things can be missed. So being able to address those quickly so that they don't spread throughout the environment, as well as being able to do more with less. So as companies are requiring or asking you their employees to be able to help out with other projects, to be able to help manage other software, being able to do more with less is a key, I guess, action I'm seeing within companies and industries that are being asked of their employees.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And through your experience, I think also, would you agree with that? The evolution of technology is also a large contributing factor, right? Previously, sensors might have been hardwired, they weren't super intelligent, and in these closed, more isolated networks. Would it be a fair statement to say, with modern technologies and modern transformations of facilities, things are coming up online, and the need for that interconnectivity between devices helps to contribute to productivity, and hence now the risk surface is much larger and more broader than what it used to be, right? Things that weren't as intelligent in the past are now becoming more intelligent and connected.
For sure, exactly.
Yeah, and to that point, I think that first slide is a good demonstration of all the different aspects of facilities, environments, all the connected areas where devices now are becoming more and more intelligent. I know anecdotally, talking to some of our colleagues and peers here, some of the projects they had were amazing, right? You think about, in this image here, we got a shipping crane. Those things are now online and they're connected via the local network and sometimes to the corporate and IT networks, other segments. I don't know of a single customer of ours that don't leverage some form of smart cameras now to monitor, physical safety or, physical security purposes. And I think that most potentially is not just increasing the risk, but it's adding and contributing to the need to monitor that device. Now that information is being brought to the analyst as well. So, as an analyst, how do you deal with events that are coming towards IoT devices, coming through devices that they may not have the same understanding and flexibility they have with traditional IT devices, right? That level of expertise or understanding is maybe not as high. So now analysts are getting data from multiple sources that spans multiple product categories. How do they make sense with all that? And is that a problem that you saw with a lot of customers when you started going down the path of Vantage IQ creation? Was you kind of touched upon it, was helping them to do more with less, but the type of data, maybe some examples if you have, maybe is some of the type of data that analysts are now seeing that they weren't seeing in the past, that's contributing to that information overload.
Yeah, for sure. We'll go through a couple examples in the demo, but a lot of the items that we're seeing when we beta test with customers is we deploy it out there. It takes about an hour for it to go through all the analytics on it existing Vantage instance. And then it goes ahead and provides those insights or those key data for that. Many of those insights are around items that are maybe some alert fatigue. So alerts coming in that may not necessarily be causing any issues, but it's areas that you can improve your security posture. And I think any company that we work with or here definitely wants to improve their security posture and make sure that they're more secure. So if it's making sure that those maybe low risk alerts that continually flooding the network, maybe they can address those if it's tuning it on Vantage or in the Nozomi platform, or maybe addressing those on the actual endpoints so that they make sure that those malformed packets, or maybe those clear text passwords, or maybe those broadcast packets being sent across, maybe they can address those, improve their network efficiency. So we're seeing different use cases for each of our customers, if it's around security, if it's around tuning, if it's around optimization, or as well as just understanding your environment better, seeing how things are correlated together, assets are correlated, or vulnerabilities are correlated together. I think each of our customers that we work with in our beta program that we've been running since, I think, October of last year, has each seen a different value for it, and working with them, understanding kind of their key items and what they're addressing, what we see in their environment, we're able to create new insights to help them out. And that's what kind of helped evolve the product of Vantage IQ, is working with real world cases, working with our customers to see those.
Fantastic. I agree 100%. And just a quick results for our previous poll. 2/3 of you have indicated that you have more information to deal with. So I think we got the right webinar for you, and hopefully this will assist and aid in that effort. I'm going to launch another quick poll here as well, which is, what are your biggest concerns? Is it more around regulatory and audit concerns? Is it more about external cyber threats with global events? Or is it more about minimizing internal operational downtime? And I think you can select multiple choices. So we'll apply the ones that all apply to you, and then we'll share back that data. All right, Scott.
So we kind of touched on this a little bit of our product vision, and we've kind of been given those key items here and there throughout the presentation so far. But really, we want to be able to help customers evolve, being able to monitor their platform, being able to do more with less. So as we mentioned, the attack surface is very large. Being able to monitor those devices in a single platform, as we monitor those in a platform, we're able to correlate those together. So if it's correlating those alerts together, to be able to understand maybe the attack surface, or being able to understand if attack does happen, who they're communicating with, and who potentially could be infected as other assets, and being able to have a bigger picture of what's going on, as well as being able to forward that to another platform if you want to do maybe a CMDB for your asset management. But again, being able to monitor and have an asset inventory all in one. But the big item with Vantage IQ is being able to do more with less, being able to deploy and monitor all of your assets throughout your organization, but not have to have a full team to manage it, being able to use Vantage IQ to understand what to do with each of those items.
Fantastic. And maybe you could give us a little history here, with the artificial intelligence. Obviously, our AI has been top of mind, especially, with ChatGPT and some of the other products that are, we hear more and more about it, right? And I think, some of the folks that followed AI in the past, I watched some YouTube videos about games, right? And how they would train the model and it would figure itself out and so on. And I know there's a lot of different ones, but without going into too deep of a concept here, how did you feel that AI was supposed to be able to address this? Is it more of scalability? Is it more about being able to understand broader sets of data and be able to, understand it, beyond what our capacities are able to do? Why apply AI versus applying more human resources?
Yeah, so we have machine learning within our product, within the Guardians and CMCs. We've had that and we've used that. However, to be able to implement AI or more advanced machine learning into it, it requires more resources, right? So we couldn't originally do that from the original platform to begin with, because we didn't have those resources on the Guardian or CMC. We were relying on those to do the deep packet inspection, to be able to monitor those packets coming in, to generate those alerts. But since we've developed Vantage, we are now in the cloud and we have the SaaS product and all the resources behind SaaS with all the utilization that we can go ahead and start implementing these more advanced machine learning algorithms, these more AI behind the scenes to be able to correlate the data and be able to provide better insights for it. So about 2.5 years ago, we started the project with Vantage IQ. So we started to build out the AI engines for it. And we're like, perfect, let's go ahead and let's start having it so that customers can query all of the data, right? We can query the data, customers can get the most out of it and be able to use it. We thought that was a great idea. And then we started working it as we started developing, we started talking to our customers and we're like, yeah, this is great. We love it. We love this advanced machine learning, the AI to be able to query the data to get more out of it, but it's not going to help us day to day. And we kind of took a step back of, okay, well, how is this not going to help you day to day? And really, it was around resources. And they're like, this is great, but we need to focus on the security. We need to focus on those key items that Nozomi's doing for us. And we don't have time to kind of write these queries and so forth. So then we're like, okay, how can we use what we've built for AI and machine learning to help customers day to day? And that's really where the insights, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, being able to create those dashboards and being able to have those key items to address using the artificial intelligence, using what we are learning inside of your environment, as well as learning what we have inside of our database around different assets and how they look and feel, different security alerts and adversary groups, taking that all into account and being able to provide better logic and better data to be able to have customers take action on them more quickly, as well as be able to know exactly how to manage, how to address those security concerns in there. So we've definitely evolved. This has been about a 2.5-year project. We hired a team of data scientists that have been working on it for over 2 years and developing this, and they're continually evolving it. I think as we work with our beta customers, I try to set up these meetings to kind of tell them all of our new items that we're doing with Vantage IQ to keep them up to date. But we're sending these updates to Vantage IQ about every day, and there's new features for it. So it's hard to keep up to date and showing them and giving those updates to it because we're evolving, we're learning, we're seeing key items within using the AI that we can use to address security concerns. And that's looking at the alerts inside of the environment, working with our customers saying, hey, did you see this alert? And they go, no, we didn't really see this pop up because of the 20,000 alerts coming in. Okay, let's make this more clear with Vantage IQ. Let's go ahead and address this and provide that so that if you do an incident response, you have those items that can help you address them quickly and be able to maybe skip a couple steps and be able to understand where to isolate your environment to start your investigation. So I think we're continually evolving. The AI is helping us evolve to understand where we can take those improvements to correlate the data and be able to help with those security items. But again, this is about a 2.5-year project we've been working on for IQ, and it's still ongoing. We still have a lot to do that you'll see later this year and into next year, which will be really cool to help out with each of our customers.
No, that's a great point. 2.5 years. Wow. It sounds like a fairly large and substantial effort. It's not just throwing technology to something and then have it magically occur, right? So it sounds like there's a lot of things going on in the back end, a lot of investments Nozomi took to implement this. And again, 2.5 years ago, I don't know if, the idea of using AI for analytics was really mainstream out there, right? As well as understood and understanding the applicability as it was back then, which is a great segue into a question here, which is, we got some folks that are asking, when will this be customer ready?
Yeah,
and,
so
if there's an opportunity for existing customers or prospects to evaluate it.
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, we've been doing a beta with customers. So far, if you have an existing Vantage instance today, if you're an existing customer of Vantage, reach out to us. We can go ahead and enable it for you to get a little test drive of it. It's going to go live here early Q3. We'll send out a release, but it should be very early Q3. So you'll be able to use this, have this, as well as we're trying something different for customers as well. So we will have Vantage, one two insights available for every Vantage customer to see and use. It's not that they have the full capability in it, but we'll just have a key items for you to address, because if there are some key critical items that you need to address, we want to help customers understand those and take action on them. We don't want to hide those and not tell you to address those. So we will be having 2 insights available for every customer, every Vantage customer to see. And then obviously if they move forward with Vantage, they'll have all the insights, the queries, and the time series and stuff to use. So the full features of it, but we wanted to just highlight a couple of them so customers can see that and start to address those, so that if there are some security items, they can address those quickly.
That's great news. That's great news, Scott. And, just put out there, and I shared the results of the last poll, which is around operational concerns. Overwhelmingly, I think the vast majority indicated, at least half of the attendees indicated that cyber threat was one of their main concerns. Second is operational stability. And I would probably argue that cyber is one of the things that contributes to resilience and stability. And then a third of the attendees indicated compliance and regulatory purposes. That being said, another quick poll here. So just a little feedback from our attendees. Your current analytics tools, do you feel like you're getting the value that you were expecting out of it? You're getting full value, half value. I know there's a lot of technologies. There's a lot of correlation tools, a lot of SIMs. My personal experience is that, there was still a lot of customization that needed to happen, right? Because there wasn't really the application of AI, right? There wasn't this greater intelligence. It was more, I would say, correlation. And I think correlation, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I don't know if correlation is the same as deep learning. I don't think they're the same based on my research and experience, but just curious what the audience and participants have to say about that. And it looks like just some early results here. It looks like most people are getting some value, kind of, midway. Some folks saying they're not really getting anything out of it, and then a small majority that is getting everything they need. But again, I think this is probably the challenges that we're trying to solve for our customers, right? Is at least the data that Nozomi collects and provides around asset identification, vulnerability, risk scoring, threat detection, behavioral analytics, everything that impacts operational resilience. How do we make that collective set of data? Because we're realizing we're monitoring more and more things than we did, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Our capacity to monitor more things and more distributed things does generate more data. And how do we simplify that for consumers of Nozomi and give that analyst more more air to breathe and some breathing space to really focus on the things that matters. And I think, at this point, Scott, I'm going to let you go into your next slide here.
Yeah, sure. So we've given you some brief introductions for Vantage IQ, but really it's looking at all the different database tables. So it's looking at your assets, your vulnerabilities, your links, your sessions, the audit logs, health logs. It's looking at all of your data. So instead of going to those different databases individually, it's looking at all of them and correlating that data together to look at the links, look at the assets, and seeing a new asset and who he's communicating with, if there's any vulnerabilities associated with those, and being able to provide an outcome for you to take action on. One of the things with Vantage IQ is we did not want it to be just another alerts table that you fill up and you kind of just scroll through it and that's it. We wanted it to be able to go through and have key items that are only good for 5 days, right? So if there's an insight or a key item to address, it's only there for 5 days. However, if it keeps triggering it and we keep seeing maybe those critical alerts or those tuning recommendations, those floods, it's going to stay there. You can mute it and acknowledge it and so forth. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit when we go through the demo. But we wanted this to be a clean dashboard that's only there for you to take action on quickly. We don't want you to scroll through 10, 20 pages of it. We want it to be one single page that you can work down your list and address each of those items. So again, looking at all the different database tables within Vantage, all the data that it has, and being able to provide key actions for it, as well as it's got a query engine that you can use those different machine learning algorithms, the different AI engines that we're using to help query the data to understand more around your environment and your assets, to see how data is correlated together, see maybe the future of what your alerts will look like based off of risk, or maybe assets coming in or vulnerabilities and so forth. You can go ahead and do future analytics for it to be able to forecast what that will look like. And then the last section we'll talk about is kind of being able to use that forecasting to look at the time series and being able to see what it will look like for bandwidth utilization for a given sensor, so a Guardian or CMC, and being able to have each of those items and being able to see that bandwidth to maybe look at for data exfiltration, or maybe see if you're using ER span or anything like that. You'll be able to see if maybe a spam port goes down, so that you'll be alerted saying, hey, this sensor is usually seeing this much traffic at a given time, but we've seen that drop quite a bit. Take a look at your spam port to make sure that ER span is still up, or your R span is still up.
Yeah, that's really interesting there, Scott. So looks like, the application of the AI and the deep learning is not just within the data that Nozomi collects, but it's also about the sensors itself. So in terms of predictive sensor health, your monitoring capability, if your monitoring capability goes off, then that is going to have a severe impact to the rest of the chain and the intelligence chain. So it's a good point that you pointed out that this is also applied to our own solutions as well.
Exactly. Yep, for sure. So let's kind of go through this demo and kind of and see some of this data that we have in here. So we have the insights. These are dashboards highlighting each of those items that you can take action on. So let's take a look at this real quick. So if you have Vantage, or I guess now that we have it so you can see the two insights, you'll see a new Vantage IQ dashboard here. Now, if you're an existing Vantage customer, you don't have Vantage IQ or have it enabled through your account manager, it's going to look something like this. So you'll have your two key insights, and then you'll have the other ones that are within your insights that you won't be able to see, but you can go through, click on these to get a little bit more information for it. So every Vantage customer will see here this week. We'll enable this for every customer to see, to kind of start looking at it. If you are a beta customer or you want to see more, you can certainly reach out and we'll enable it for you, but you'll be able to see all of this data. So we can click on each of these to be able to get more information, or we can go into the Vantage IQ dashboard. So we have insights, answers, and time series, and I'll go through each of these. So insights is really where I feel most of the customers are going to spend their time. This is really highlighting and looking at all the different database tables and creating a clear dashboard to take action on. So we can see that there's some unusual high-risk alerts. We can see that there's a security threat and so forth. So we have each of these highlighted from critical, this is your red, and then we go down to warning, and then some informational. Informational is just more around your assets and maybe tuning recommendations that you can do. If we look at maybe some of these alerts and read more, so like compromised node, we can see that this one's been compromised. So we can see that we have from this specific device, node section A terminal 1 has been compromised on this specific sensor. We know that it's also communicated to the node PC, control PC PBSB. So we have one asset that has been compromised. You can see that in alert. You can get that into your SIM and say, hey, we have a malware found. Perfect. What's the next thing you're going to do? You're going to go to that asset and say, okay, who are you communicating with? Who is potentially compromised? How big is this spread? Who do I need to isolate? So what Vantage IQ is doing is it's looking at this first section A terminal 1 and saying, okay, you've been compromised. Perfect. We're going to start looking at each of your communications after you've been infected and start to learn who you're communicating to that's been abnormal. So we can see that there's been a new communication to this different device with a risky protocol, which if we go to results, will probably tell us it's SMB. So we can see that it started, we can see that the asset's been compromised, and then we can see that it started communicating to this other asset using the SMB protocol. So far with your IR investigation, we've helped you compromise and know how far spread this is. A couple of our beta customers that we've been working on, we've seen this in their environment. They seen their malware they had a malware in their environment. It wasn't impacting operation. They were working to address it, but it wasn't impacting there was no outage for it at this time. So they were scheduling to work on it. But then we created that insight, which said you have one asset that's been compromised, but then we showed 6 other assets that also has been compromised. So it's showing that it's spreading throughout their environment. So then they said, okay, we need to take action on this more quickly. So they went through and started to isolate those so it didn't spread throughout their environment. This is something that helps streamline their investigation process to be able to understand what's been compromised, as well as other assets that could potentially be compromised with new communication, with risky protocols to these other assets that we're able to identify for them and help them with their incident response more quickly.
Yeah, that being said, that was really interesting here is, just on the previous insight screen, one of the things I noticed is that when I first was using this and I connected my lab sensors to this, I had one, I think, insight, and when I first connected, and then I came back, I don't know, 3-4 days later, all of a sudden it was multiple insights. So that insights are being created. This is purely automatic. So the deep learning and the AI is creating these insights, and it's highlighting multiple events that it feels is relevant. And I know some of it was actually admin related, which was really interesting because it was saying that, it was pointing out something to me that I never, as an operator, as an analyst, really even thought about, was that potentially, the users of the product, there was irregular behavior. And that's something that as an analyst, I would never think to even look at. So it was really interesting how it was looking at all aspects of the data. And as you mentioned, the tables, right? And the statement about monitoring the sensor state and sensor health and access logs, and then also applying that deep learning as well. So just in terms of, I don't know if you have some samples of real world events, maybe just some rough numbers of how many events across alerts tables, link tables, session tables, asset tables, health logs, where, we said, all right, we saw known alerts, and then we added a known alerts, 6, 7, 8 insights.
Yeah, for sure. I was seeing if I have an example of some here. Let's see. No, not some. So each customer has been different that we've been working with for beta customers. I think a couple that I've seen within their environment is a customer had a project to deploy the Nozomi solution out quickly. They wanted their first step was just deployment, right? So they went ahead and quickly deployed out there, and they're still going through their ongoing process of that. But they had 70 sites deployed already. They didn't do any tuning for it. They kind of said, let's just let it run. After it, phase 2, we'll go back through tuning and so forth. Perfectly fine. They're sending all their events to their SIM, and they were getting some of their key ones with risk rating 8 and above to take action on and investigate. There were some other ones in there that we were able to highlight and say, for maybe a specific alert, like this one is not a lot, but this customer had around 15,000 of the same alert in their environment, same alert. So we were able to correlate those together, and there was 15,000 of them that we seen, and we said, hey, let's go ahead and take action on this. Let's go ahead and say, we've seen this in your environment. It's a high risk alert. Would you like to mute it, or would you like to tune it? We recommend investigating it further. This one, for instance, you probably want to look at because it's a man in the middle attack. So you might want to take a look at it. The customer that they had was a low risk one, but it was quite a bit. So 15,000 of them, we correlated down to one. And I believe it was like a network scan from one of their security tools that was doing a scan, but it showed up 15,000 times. So what they were able to do, instead of going through closing out all those and filtering from it, they were able to, one, acknowledge it, which acknowledged all of those associated alerts. So if we go in here and we look at the alerts in here, we can see the alerts, and this one's grouped together from AML. So there's multiple ones that are associated into this one, but they listed 15,000 of them in here. So we were able to go ahead and acknowledge those, say we're working on it. Once they investigated and said, yeah, these are low risk, came from our monitoring tool, they were able to go ahead and mute it. when they muted it, they went ahead and prevented that from showing. There's other ones that will go ahead and create a mute rule for it so it doesn't show up. So it's helping them tune it. First, we said, hey, here's a lot of alerts in your environment. Could be flooding your network, could be overwhelming, increasing the performance utilization on the Guardian. But take a look at this. We've correlated this down. Simple one alert to take a look at. Instead of scrolling through 15,000 of them, just look at this one, investigate it, and we'll help you do that tuning process. So that definitely helped them remediate maybe that alert and be able to tune that better. So I think I've seen 15,000 down to 1. I've seen around 1,000. A lot of them that I see are just around maybe 500 to 600 alerts that we've correlated down to one single alert that they can look at and to either acknowledge, mute it, or go ahead and take action on it.
Right. Well, would it be also accurate to say, Scott, and this is again through my personal experience, right, that the insights is not just correlation of the exact same event over and over, right? Because a lot of tools can say, all right, it's the exact same thing, we'll squash it down. But like that man in the middle or some of the more complex attacks, the individual attacks actually have multiple distinct alerts or events that are correlated to a specific threat, right? Yeah. So, some of it starts with a probing and then SMB connections and then malware connections and being distributed. Yep. But Insights is actually, as you mentioned, looking across all these different tables. I was looking at the sessions, the links, the asset details, the vulnerabilities, and then also adding correlation to top of that. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Yeah. So it's going through all the different database tables, adding correlation to it so that you can address it. So we can see each of these kind of gray bubbles here. We can see this one's looking more at the alerts. So it's kind of generated based on the alerts table. We're looking at vulnerabilities and sensors, but also in this alerts, we're looking at the vulnerabilities. We're looking at the links to see who they're communicating to. As we looked at this compromised node, it says alerts here because it was triggered off the alert, but also we started looking at the sessions and links table to be able to understand what could be potentially compromised. So we were able to look at all these different database tables. One insight, which I think is very useful for customers, as I see a lot of the crawl, walk, run approach for their deployments of, hey, let's deploy it to the core, and then let's see our asset inventory, and then let's see where we can move lower to it. This limited asset visibility is one that I think is going to help out partners. It's going to help out customers. It's going to help out everyone with that crawl, walk, run approach where they deploy to their core network. So what this is doing is it's looking at the environment. It's looking at what we see for the assets being gathered, the data around those assets. We're seeing that maybe there's unconfirmed MAC addresses. We can see, looking at the links and sessions, where that communication is going from and to, and we're starting to provide logic to it. So we can say that we have limited asset visibility. Okay, why do we have limited asset visibility? Well, we can see that you're monitoring higher in the network. We see that this Cisco device here with this MAC address and this ABB device with this MAC address, we should be able to monitor those networks behind those or monitor those networks to be able to get better information from those assets. So we can see that we see most of our communication coming from it. We see a lot of the common MAC addresses. We can see that the assets that are behind these based off the links and sessions don't have a lot of data from it because they're being dropped from a firewall, or maybe it's not going up all the way up to that core because they're going maybe peer-to-peer in a lower access layer switch. So we don't see some of that traffic being broadcasted across or being sent across to another peer up in the core. So we can recommend that let's go down to these switches. Let's monitor those switches to have better visibility, which then will be able to provide more information around your assets. Is this the last time if we are monitoring a core network that has maybe 5 layers? Maybe not. It might not be the last of unlimited asset visibility we get. We might go down lower and we say, okay, perfect. We got a little bit more information, but we still see a little bit lower and more information we can get lower. And we might recommend this again. But this is key for our customers that are deploying to the core to kind of get it out there initially and then going down to see where they need to get more visibility, as well as partners going out and deploying it out there to customers and not having those network drawings, right? I know when I was working, I was trying to keep up to date with all those network drawings, but as we've seen in one of the first slides there, how the attack surface is growing. It's so much larger now. It's hard to keep all those network diagrams up to date. So when someone goes out there and says, hey, where do we need to monitor? You're like, I don't know. We got more assets. We can go ahead and deploy in the core, use Vantage IQ to say, okay, let's go lower in these environments to be able to get more information from those.
Yeah, this is actually an insight I've never gotten, right? In my home network, it's very limited. I got a flat network at home. So I didn't even know that insight existed. But I don't know any security solution or monitoring tool out there today that will tell you that it's not getting full visibility. It can do better if you do some adjustments, right? Whether it's being too far from where it needs to be, it's not in the ideal area. I've never seen a solution to say, it's like literally a camera saying, hey, based on the video I'm receiving, if you, I'm not seeing everything I need to do, I can give you more information if you put me in a proper place. That's really interesting. I didn't even know that insight existed, and that's a really interesting one. We do have a couple of questions here, Scott, live real quick. So in terms of training, if there's some training, with the deep learning, what's a typical duration? So if we got a, maybe example, 10,000 alerts, when can we expect to start seeing insights?
Yeah, so when we first go ahead and activate Vantage IQ in your environment, it takes about an hour for it to go through all of your current data within your database to be able to provide the insights. We on the back end have different database tables that we're working with our customers, and they're helping us with training data. But for existing customers or customers that once we go live, all of the data is going to be within your individual instance. So it's going to be learning from your individual instance and taking all that. So it's going to go ahead and create these insights. After an hour, you'll show all of these up within there. And then multiple times throughout the day, it's going to go ahead and relearn that data and recalculate it. So these will go ahead and show. So again, we can see that how many times these have triggered in this demo environment. We can see that this has been triggered 147 times. This traffic flow, it's got the counter on it, started at 28 minutes ago. So if we don't see this traffic flow for 5 days, it's going to go ahead and remove from it. It's still part of our training data for your individual instance on your database. But if it doesn't show up again, it's going to disappear from here, because we want you to take action, like I said, on the key items that you're going to address quickly and not have it scrolling through multiple pages up here. So training data takes about an hour, and it's using your data that you have within your instance.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Another quick question here is the insight, these events are being created, insights are being created. Is there any plans potentially to do SOAR integrations, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there's many items that we can take with Vantage IQ. I think we have a huge list on our board of all the items that we want to do within here. Being able to have some orchestration built into it is something that is key for us to address. Some of the first orchestration that we're going to develop, it's not in the product today, but we will work on, is being able to have some of these automatic tuning. So we see some of these alerts in here for request flood, some other stuff in here around the alerts and so forth, and maybe some tuning recommendations around zones and so forth. Being able to see these, and if you haven't taken action on them in 30 days, 60 days for some of those low risk ones, and we see it's not going to be impactful for a vulnerability, we want to be able to address those and create those mute rules for you, or those tuning rules for you, so that you don't have to go back through and do it. So it's going to be something that will be opt-in. So if you want to have those automated tuning, you can certainly opt into it. If you want to control that, perfectly fine. Or just have a recommendation for it. We want to be able to have those options for customers to do. So if you just want an easy button that says, yeah, I agree, tune it, have that there. We have the ones for mute already, so we can go ahead and mute some of those today, where we can go ahead and create a mute role with that easy button. But we want to be able to have some more orchestration in there and be able to generate those reports and help with more of an instant response. Some of the other items, which kind of jumping ahead here, but looking at time series, Let me look at one a little bit larger demo environment here. So time series is looking at the bandwidth utilization. So we can see and forecast the bandwidth for it. So if I zoom in here, I can see the bandwidth, I can see where the good parameters are, I can see some spikes. So if someone logs in and you have some high spikes at 8 a.m. when everyone logs in or whatever throughout the day or during backup times, we're going to baseline those and be able to understand those. But some of the other stuff that we want to do is be able to help and apply this to the OT assets where we can go ahead and say, looking at more of the process variables and help with preventative maintenance. So something that we've been investigating and trying to see if we can do more preventative maintenance for it. So if we see some alerts coming in for an asset, as well as we see some process variables dropping below the normal, we see some maybe stops of process variables where it goes down to 0, some open closes, which is abnormal, or if we see when some normal actions where we see maybe a valve close and it's slower closing, we want to be able to alert on those using some time series for process variables, which will help with that. And we can help build some of those items that you can do preventative maintenance for. So there's a lot of items that we want to do, and we'll investigate. Some of them we can certainly implement in, some of them might be a little bit longer, some of them we can't do, but we have a large list of what we want to do within Vantage IQ to help customers be able to take action and do more with less. So I'm not saying we'll do everything, but we're certainly going to try to do as much as we can and get that implemented within the product.
No, fantastic. I think forecasting piece, I think that's the first one, right? When you say do more with less,
Yes.
If you're able to forecast, you can now prepare, right? Versus being reactive, versus pulling in additional resources, versus going to panic mode. If you have the ability to have foresight into your expectations of, is our alerts expected to go up or down? Is our risk expected to go up and down? You can take pre-measures to minimize the impact of those subsequent actions. And I think this is really, really important element of what I've seen from IQ thus far. I did send a quick poll in terms of just overall, Nozomi aside, but how do you feel about the application of AI with addressing cybersecurity threats? And the attendees are overwhelmingly optimistic. 9 out of 10 people are saying that they believe it will have a significant impact, which is great. And I think, there's going to be great more things to come. This is our first stab at this after 2.5 years of development. So you can see it's not an easy or quick process. One quick question here is, going back to the subject of the insights, what do you feel, what is the impact potentially when you do insights, when you have limited visibility? Is that, do you think, substantial impact? But, I think the way if I understand the question correctly is, from what I'm saying at least, there's other categories, right? So even if you have limited insights, the sessions, the flows, maybe we may not be, as close to the assets or the node points as we'd like. There's still a lot of information that we're able to provide from an insight perspective. Would that be an accurate statement, Scott? Yeah,
for sure. So one of our customers that we had, they used our professional services. Their environment was very tuned with alerts, with what data was in their environment, with their zones. Everything else within the environment was very tuned. They spent a lot of time with our professional services team to do the tuning for it. We implemented Vantage IQ on it just to kind of see how well they did their work, kind of just saying, let's see what Vantage IQ can do for you. And it showed that it was perfectly tuned. It was amazing. It was a great job. Our professional service team did an amazing job for it. And then they're like, okay, so what's the insights going to do for us? So then we kind of started going through it, and there was some more data that they didn't understand, that they didn't know was in their environment. And that was more or less correlations to other assets and how things were correlated together, looking for maybe risky zones, looking at the alerts in the specific zone and the vulnerabilities and saying, hey, this zone is more risky. So providing them more information from their assets and their zones in their environment, just giving them a more kind of a high level overview of, hey, well, this is what your environment looks like. So they're able to see those in insights and are like, this is perfect. They added a new site on, they added a new site on and it showed some tuning recommendations. Professional services did those and they said, perfect, this is great. They showed those inside of insights, but they're also to show that there was also some vulnerabilities in their environment that they didn't see. So insights was kind of helping them understand their environment better, where their risky zones are, their risky sites, risky protocols, that they started to create projects around to say, okay, we have some SMB still in our environment. Let's try to get a not use SMB version 1. Let's try to upgrade that. Let's try to not use Telnet or HTTP. And they started creating initiatives around that just to improve their security posture in there, as well as they started using these answers. So answers, let's say the big is the OpenAI or ChatGPT, right? So the question around where our training data is just really on your data. And we wanted to kind of focus on that to make sure that these answers just kind of understand your environment better was using your data. So you're not getting skewed information. So we've been working on these answers for it, and we'll be adding more generative AI into the product in the future to be able to ask more open-ended questions. And certainly you can use this to write your own queries. But they started using this customer started using just to understand their environment of how assets were clustered together to be able to get a better information of where they are for each site. One of the ones that they're using quite a bit is just, this one is just a simple graph or chart that they can navigate to and be able to get more information. So they can go through, look at their OT assets, look at the different vendors. They can see the number of their vendors, how much is their environment, and be able to get more information from each of those. And they can write their own queries to be able to get more information from it. So if we go into the query builder, we can see this and write out our queries using Vantage IQ's language. And you can do this with clustering, forecasting, and so forth. If you wanted to see maybe how your links are in your environment, you can write a query for that too. So if I wanted to see maybe the links and see how they are grouped together, I can certainly just write a simple query using Vantage IQ engines, which is describe. So it's correlating it together and just giving me a describe one just to see how my links are. So I can see I can see my common IP address for my from is 16% of them is from this 168.0.110. I can see the 2 where it's going from is the 11.5 and the different protocols in my environment. So just giving more simple information, this customer is able to understand their environment better and be able to generate reports and help their security posture. And we can kind of go through zones and if the data has been confirmed and so forth, if it's broadcast or whatnot. So you can do describe, and there's all kinds of ones. You can do pivots, you can do popular, you can do simplify, you can do forecast, you can do compare, cluster. Each of these are different machine learning or AI engines that we built in the background that you can use as part of Vantage IQ to understand your environment better.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there, is that the insights that the AI deep learning is presenting is still, you can dig in farther, right? So there's a need to get even deeper or more specific, but it gives you a starting base. And I think, again, with my former life as an analyst, we get this big screen of alerts. I would maybe sort for some commonalities or priorities, typically how I addressed it when I came in the morning. But having the ability to say, all right, we've applied deep learning, we've applied AI. AI is telling you, here's a list of things you need to pay attention to. And then from there, I can be more prescriptive and be more specific. But I got a starting point now, and I don't have to determine my own starting points because the system is telling me the prioritization things for me. So it's almost like having a personal assistant coming in the day and saying, hey, here's what your agenda should look like for today, and go bang them out, and you go and do those meetings. So that's a really interesting point. There is a quick question here. You mentioned that it takes about an hour, 60 minutes for insights to start kicking in.
Yeah.
Is there a restriction on how many events, alerts that it's able to do in that hour? Is it able to take 1 million, 2 million, 100,000 within that hour? I don't know if there's a limiting capacity.
No, we've done some very large benchmarking. So one environment that we're using for benchmarking has 1 million assets, has over 1 million alerts in there, and it was able to process that within a few minutes and go through all the data as the first initial one. And it continually goes through and analyzes the data. I would say no, I haven't seen it take longer. We're utilizing SaaS, so it's utilizing Vantage as well as Vantage IQ because it's a module. And I guess let me kind of jump over to this real quick. Oops. So architecture is it's just a module that fits onto Vantage. So it's using the data within your Vantage database. So it's not copying the data. It's not replicating it anywhere else. It's just a module that kind of ties into the Vantage instance cluster, and it goes through and processes the data within it. So because we're using the data in that same database structure, we're able to process everything very quickly. And that's why we can enable it on customers very quickly by just going through and just adding that module onto it, and then it goes through and starts the processing the data. So no need to copy it, which speeds up that time.
Fantastic, fantastic. There was a quick question here. I think maybe Apple go over one. I'll just say out loud, and then I'll indicate the response, which is, what's the best way to leverage Vantage IQ with your existing Guardian or CMC deployment? One throat to choke. This is why we had the CMC. The CMC simply needs to be connected to your Vantage instance, which we can help you provision. And that data now, that metadata is now being synced to Vantage, and you'll be able to obtain these insights. The last 4-minute warning here real quick for you, Scott, and I apologize for asking so many questions. Got a lot of great questions from the attendees here, but maybe maybe go down the path on how existing customers or prospects that want to learn more about IQ, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, let me just add to the question about the CMC and Guardian connection to it. So one of the things is obviously we need the data in Vantage, right? So if you use Vantage as a license server, Vantage IQ really isn't going to help you because there's no asset data, there's no links, sessions, vulnerabilities, and so forth. So we want to be able to get the data into Vantage. One of the enhancements that we did for our customers, which I'm sure if you are an existing Vantage customer and have a multi-context CMC, one of the enhancements we did is we're able to grab the links, sessions, and nodes and bring that into Vantage. It doesn't save it on the CMC, so there's not that resource on the CMC that's saving it to the database, but it's going through the CMC into Vantage, which allows us to write a lot of those queries and have better insights to it. That was one of the initiatives, is to get all that data into Vantage, specifically around a multi-context CMC. So if you have a multi-context CMC, having it into Vantage, perfectly fine. It creates those insights, those data. If you have a Guardian connected to it, same exact thing. It's going to process that data and have that in there. So the thing is obviously we want all the data that we can in Vantage. So using it as a license server, removing maybe links, sessions, or alerts in there is going to hinder or limit some of those insights and that visibility we have to create those insights and those correlations.
Fantastic. Any sorry, go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just kind of then to jump into your other question with how do his existing customers have it. So again, it's something simple we can add on to Vantage in a module. So if you reach out to your account manager, certainly let them know you're interested in Vantage. We can go ahead and do a beta program for you to start off with to see the value of it, as well as if you are an existing Vantage customer and you do not have part of the beta program, you're going to see those two insights to kind of see those two items to see it. You're not going to be able to navigate to do the results and the queries and so forth, but you will be able to see those insights to see that. So you should have that in your instance today and be able to see that. But again, reach out to your account manager, set up a meeting, discuss it further. We can help you guys out to test it out and see that, as well as if you go and you want some more information, if you want a demo of it, if you're not a Nozomi customer or a Vantage customer, go ahead into the Nozomi webpage, into products, Vantage IQ demo, whichever one. You can go ahead and request a demo of it, and we can go ahead and set that up for you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Scott. And I want to thank all of our attendees today. Thank you for hanging with us to the end. Our hour is up, and we thank you for your participation, for doing the polls, and then for all one of your great questions. You can tell we're super excited about Vantage IQ. We hope you're as well. Our goal is to always help and enable you to do better than yesterday. So with that, have a wonderful Wednesday, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.